Someone's gonna die over there. And that was that. Welcome back to the Mentor Roulette grind. This time we're playing Monk, and this time we had a bit of issues with queue times. Again. But we did get some variety aside from nearly 50% kill tests once again. For duty 1, we went to the new one from 7.4, so if you don't want to see that, jump to this timestamp here. That said, we of course went to Mistwake. On the very first pull, I make the mistake of trying to do 2 full perfect balances before Fire's reply, causing it to fizzle out. It has been a bit since I've played Monk in a proper duty. But with that said, I do have a tip for Monk in dungeons specifically. Typically, in a raid boss fight of some sort, the optimal way to start it at max level is to perform 2 elixir bursts in the opener, as this places a Rising Phoenix on the odd minute, and then Phantom Rush consistently comes out on the 2-minute burst to maximize its damage. This works consistently, as long as you can use your perfect balances on time, reliably. However, in the context of a dungeon duty, where downtime between fights can come up very inconsistently, it is very likely that these things will drift, which means doing the double elixir burst, which does push back your first Phantom Rush by a minute, may not even be rewarded. For that reason, I always start dungeon runs as Monk with Lunar Solar, and then we just hope we don't drift too many cooldowns throughout the duty. For Monk, the final boss is pretty chill to deal with, as every time it jumps around you can easily just follow it, and there are spots so that you can maintain uptime throughout the many line AoEs. What is maybe a harder fight to maintain uptime is the Noodle Horse, specifically during its dashes. When it starts dashing around, you kind of have 2 options. One is to wait at the first stop and just 6-sided star and play it safe. The other option, which I did not make use of, is again to expect the horse on the first stop, then thunderclap as it dashes to the second, third and fourth stop, and then go to the middle in anticipation of it returning. In hindsight, as long as you hold 3 thunderclaps for this and press them on time, this isn't dangerous at all. But you do need 3 to keep up. Depending on how it all lines up with your burst, timing Fire's reply for a moment where you can't easily keep up the pressure may also be helpful. Same for Wind's reply, although it has less range. What makes this approach scary is that if you don't thunderclap on time, the horse dashes out of range and leaves you behind in explosions, so you really have to be ready to follow it. The difficulty with Fire's reply especially is that since it grants Formless Fist, it isn't that flexible on when you use it. Long story short, as far as I can tell, Monk can totally keep full uptime on this boss, you just gotta get good. For duty 2, we went to Triangle Box Protectors. 2 weeks in a row! Crazy! And there's a lot in New Me. Hello! What's even crazier is that we have a level 41 Conjurer. The duty is a very simple wave defense kind of fight, and as long as at least one box survives, you're fine. If all boxes break, it leads to duty failed though. This run did seem to take a while, which starts to make sense when we look at the party. The Conjurer unsurprisingly spent a lot of time just casting Cure 1 on people that hardly needed it. The Red Mage seemed to be having issues with their toolkit, using Jolt a lot more than necessary. The Dragoon also went for periods without Power Surge, although that one could have been due to spamming AoE. It's smaller things, and it could be that part of the problem was that we weren't spread out as much as we could, leading to a lot of running back and forth, also wasting time. Either way, we still managed with all the boxes still alive. For duty 3, we went to O12N, Omega F and Omega M, and this gets very chaotic. The first problems arrive when Omega F hits the field and immediately tosses a Machinist and the main tank out. Out of the whole roster, I'd say me, the Black Mage and the Sage were pretty solid. The Dark Knight was trying quite hard, but both them and the Gunbreaker, while they were learning, it was still going a little slower than you may normally expect, which led to various issues. For example, here's a tip. As the off tank, you don't have to have the tank stance on if you aren't actively tanking. However, if you don't have the stance on, it does mean that you should keep your eyes open for if the main tank dies. Because the moment they die, you're the main tank and you're behind now. You better provoke fast if or when something does go wrong as a result. Because of this unawareness, both the Black Mage and then I die from tanking the boss. Despite all this chaos, we managed to fully recover, only for the bosses to split. The general recommendation here, which I have mentioned before, is to run both the spread and the stack marker out to the edge of the arena, at a preferably 90-degree angle between each other. The reason for this is that this means both bosses are relatively easily reached, while also giving a clear path to get tossed across the arena from F's knockback. Now, in practice this never happens, but angling around Omega M already helps a ton. Unfortunately, what actually happens is that the Gunbreaker, the White Mage and the Machinist goes down, and a lot of other players get swiped by M, leaving us at a huge disadvantage for the DPS check. We do manage to beat it, only for the split right after to knock the Gunbreaker off again. This leads to me tanking F for a while until the Gunbreaker reacts to what they need to do. Once the bosses start the mechanic where they have to be split apart, it takes too long for the tanks to get that done, wasting further resources, which is also not helped by the fact it seems the White Mage is making use of Medica 1. Then the Flare Markers almost wipe us all out, followed by Tank Busters taking out the Gunbreaker again. Things get so bad that I suggest Limit Break, which the White Mage refuses to act upon, but the Sage immediately sends upon being raised. Unfortunately, as the bosses were not split, they kill the alive tank before the team can fix things again. Not that it really mattered, as the Flare Markers, again, end up killing both healers, leaving us in an unrecoverable state. On the run back, when F spawns in, both the Gunbreaker, White Mage and Machinist goes down once again. As we progress, we get back to the DPS check with both Machinists and the White Mage down. But after that, we finally see everyone survive the knockback as we go into the both bosses phase. The combination of flares and raid wights takes out the Sage and the Machinist, and while the Sage does come back up, this leaves us with 2 healers with low MP. Interestingly, me and the Black Mage were on F, which ran out of juice while M still had over 30% HP left. I don't think I've ever seen this fight have such a big HP difference at the end, which did end up mattering because when one of them dies, the other just starts spamming raid wights, making for quite a heal check. But we did manage to win in the end. In hindsight, I didn't use Mantra a single time, which could possibly have helped multiple times throughout the fight. For duty 4, we went to Herbs for Turds. A really random tip here for Monk is that in low-level duties where you could fight off one mob at a time as a monk, doing so to exit combat allows you to instantly prep a steel peak in 1 second, which is a gain over not doing so. This mostly matters when you don't yet have any AoE buttons, of course. For duty 5, we again went to Plants for Snaps. But this time, I was worried that the tank didn't realize that sleeping the turtle was the only win condition, considering how they were bashing away at it until I mentioned duty fail if the turtle dies. Thankfully, we still cleared. For duty 6, due to a long queue time, we hopped over to Light to try and see if it goes better there, and then landed in A2N. Send me back! There isn't really much to say here, we just send the attacks we have at any time, and as target counts increase and decrease, swap between single target and AoE, which is something Monk fortunately is blessed with the ability to do. Although it wouldn't add much, I do think it is a shame that the Gobwalkers are entirely optional on normal. For duty 7, we went to M7N, Arcadion's Brute Abombinator. Considering I have not done this fight very much as melee, I will say that Monk feels surprisingly chill despite all the jumping around. In phase 1, the main problem that can come up is that the ads can do cross AoEs and donuts that could get in the way. On the one hand, on normal, the ads don't have an enrage, so you could just ignore them until the boss petrifies them. On the other hand, it is easier to plan around hiding behind a corpse that won't move than one that shuffles around. And killing them is a more consistent way of preventing them from getting their AoEs in the way. In the second phase, being able to easily and quickly thunderclap to the boss each time he moves position meant I had no need to worry about moving early or late for the donut and circle AoEs as he moved. Especially because he only did donuts, so getting close was all I had to do. Even in the final phase, Thunderclap again makes it exceptionally easy to keep up with the boss as he jumps around, making for a very solid fight with few issues. I think the Scholar died a few times though. For duty 8, as Light also had long queues, we ended up going back to Chaos, since it didn't seem to be better at least. And then we went to Ultima Weapon Extreme, and the second Scholar knew me. Hello! And this is my opportunity to remind you all that, for some reason, the single target filler 1-2-3 combo at level 50 is balanced such that using perfect balance for single target is actually a minuscule loss over simply not using it. For AoE it is great for spamming out rock breakers though. Despite the amount of sprouts in this party, I was very impressed with how well everyone handled the orbs. On the first wave, the orbs were handled systematically and instantly with 0 deaths. On the second set, things got a little more dicey, with the tank taking one alone, me forgetting I have Thunderclap, but joining them for the second one nonetheless, and the third separate orb being handled by everyone else. Then, for the last set, I just go in. The last set of orbs give you too little time to hesitate much, and it is very common for first pulls to wipe just to that. So, not even wanting to risk that possibility, I just dive straight in, and promptly die to assisting with several orbs. Looking at who participated in the orbs being almost only me and the tanks, and looking at how low the paladin went doing so, me helping with a few of the orbs very well might have led to the party not wiping, especially because the paladin was taking the orbs too far away from everyone else to help. With me dead, the rest of the party cleans up what remains of Ultima weapon easily. For duty 9, we went to the burn, and the tank knew me. Hello! Aside from one point when AoE pull got a little bit weird because of a follow-up pack being forgotten about, they did super well. The second boss has an interesting similarity to the Ant boss from the more recent Underkeep, which is that the defective drone here leaves the arena almost exactly 24 seconds into the fight. So you need to send the 2-minute immediately if you have it. Speaking of which, Monk has ways to keep the rotation going when targets leave. To be more specific, if for instance, you're missing a target in the middle of your perfect balance, you can use AoE options to finish the 3 steps to choose your nutty. And with the exception of Tornado Kick and Phantom Rush, and Celestial Revolution, the 2 main Masterful Blitzes can be used without a target, just to collect the natty for the big finish later. Sometimes it comes up. For duty 10, we went to visit Bogman. Quick 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and out. Remember, Snap Punch is a flank positional. For duty 11, we went to the Tower of Zod with Ilana. Let's talk a bit about boss tips on this one. For the first boss, if you forget to pay attention to what spell is being sent off to the sides when the boss casts them, note that she gets a buff for each orb, and the name of the buff, and the icon too, shows exactly what element it will be. As long as you, of course, remember which element is what. Ice is thin cones, thunder is cardinal direction circles, fire is a donut, and poison is a wide cleave towards the center of the arena. More precisely, ice and thunder does not require you to approach the orb, while fire and poison does. An extra aside is that all of Mindaruva's dots can be blocked from being applied in the first place if the initial hit does 0 damage due to barriers. I feel like the second boss is pretty straightforward, so let's skip over that. The final boss has a little bit of extra to talk about. Notably, seemingly, the main one, Sindaruva, will raise the other bosses if you kill them, but aside from that, seems to just let you hurt them. So jobs that can multi-dot or otherwise cleave all 3 are free to do so, as long as you don't kill Sindaruva and Mindaruva early. Furthermore, while Mindaruva is the one among the 3 with the least HP, you may have noticed that parties commonly fight off Sindaruva immediately after Sindaruva. The reason for this is that once Cindy is down, Sandy will start using her confusion spells again, and if she gets to do that, it takes more time than if you simply take her out first. For comparison, taking out Mindy first just removes her high damage output from the field. In this party, there were some minor hiccups here and there, but nothing big to write home about, so I'd say it was a great success overall. For duty 12, we went to Villain's Castle, still at a level where all we have is 1, 2, 3 in Steel Peak, 1 Steel Peak per fight too, so not that much stuff happened. For duty 13, we have a third go at Sleepy Turtle, and thanks to our near failure last time, I immediately mentioned to be careful with the turtle. We of course clear it with no issues. And finally for duty 14, we went to Shiva Extreme with Shack and Crusher. And the Mentor tank here was fantastic. As we entered phase 2, they mentioned to get behind when bow happens, and aside from a scholar death to not getting behind the bow in time, the other tank would have died too, but tank privilege. The main tank getting ice blocked by forgetting to knock back immune in time, the other tank and the summoner sliding into getting ice blocked too, and the summoner dying as a result. We didn't actually have a lot of mistakes, so let me talk about some overall tips for this fight. Whenever Shiva brings out the sword, she always opens with a stack around the main tank, so commonly the main tanker runs into the party situated, preferably behind Shiva to share that, and then immediately flips her back to phase away from the party, because shortly after she will use Glacier Bash, which is a frontal cone stun that kills non-tanks, usually. You can simply sidestep it, like Garuda's Slipstream. In the first phase of the fight, this Glacier Bash often only comes up in the add phase, as it is possible to skip it in the part before the add phase. The only reason you would need 2 tanks for this fight, aside from needing a second one when the first one dies, is to share the resistance down debuffs. The staff gives slashing debuffs, which the sword benefits from, and the sword gives blunt debuffs that the staff benefits from. By having each tank a different weapon, this mechanic is entirely avoided. However, the debuff stacking isn't so painful that one single tank couldn't just take both. Not to mention, the bow benefits from neither, but instead auto-crits every attack. The final tip you'd usually need for Shiva Extreme on an average run is whenever you see the window with the flaw, stop moving. As 1 second later, it becomes slippery, and it almost never fails that players slip into the edge of the room and become ice cubes. Shiva pretty much never does anything that requires moving while the floor is slippery, so just wait it out. That said, thanks to this solid party, we easily got Shiva down first try. You know, I had kind of hoped for a few more duties, but that's how it is sometimes when the queue is long. Since it has been a while since I played varied jobs in Mentor Roulette, I'm aiming to start gearing up those jobs and do a set with each of them, before maybe reintroducing the wheel. Although I am still hoping we could get some shorter queues and less skill tests. But we can't get everything we wish for. We also passed 30/43ths on the achievement. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Twitch or Ko-Fi. Links in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, around late Shadowbringers to early Endwalker is probably where Riddle of Earth was the most busted. In late Shadowbringers, it reduced damage by 10%, lasted 10 seconds, or for 3 GZDs, whichever came first, and doubled as a True North effect, and held 3 charges and a 30-second charge time. With Endwalker, the True North part got taken out, but the reduction was doubled to 20%. So the jump to a no-charge 2-minute cooldown as it is now was quite steep.